everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode in our friendship series. We are grateful to have a special guest with us today. And if you have not listened to our first two episodes, we'd love for you to go back and check those out after you finish this one. But Gretchen, we would love for you to introduce our listeners to your special friend who's here, and then let's get into our conversation about friendship.
Yes, so welcome. I'm so excited. There is no better way to end the friendship series than to have my friend Jennifer. We have two Jennifers today. And Jennifer Wood is my friend from Illinois, and she is, I think we were talking about this last night, that she's like, I don't want to say the oldest friend,
but maybe
yes. She is the friend that I have had the longest. We think we were probably about two when we met. And we have been friends ever since. And we've gone through different seasons of kind of not being in much contact and then more contact and just different things. But she has been the most faithful friend throughout my entire life. She has seen and experienced all the versions of me, the good, the bad, the parts that have been redeemed. She has seen it all and has just constantly encouraged, pointed me to Christ, been an example of him in my life, in my family. She is just the portrait of friendship. So I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Jennifer Wood. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
So I would love for the listeners to get to know you a little bit and for you to share about your life and your family and a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up in Illinois, went to college in East Tennessee, and got a couple of degrees and a husband from there. And then we moved back to Illinois. We have three boys. The oldest is married and now lives in East Tennessee. The middle is in college in Nashville. And our youngest is a senior in high school. So almost empty nesters. My husband is a federal prison chaplain. He used to be a youth minister and says the job is pretty similar. The jobs are pretty similar. So that's fun. And I stayed home with my boys when they were small, taught second grade for about 10 years. And now I work for a curriculum company. I get to travel a lot, training teachers on the reading curriculum that their school has purchased and perhaps forced them to use. So that's a lot of fun. I provide therapy for them. So yeah, that's what we do. We live in small town Illinois and mostly enjoy that. I think no matter where you raise your family, you think of other places that it maybe could have been better, but it's been a great place to raise our boys. So that's us.
That's awesome. So one of the ways that we like to start most of our episodes is with sharing a meaningful moment, which is just a way for us to connect kind of our everyday life with you all, the listeners. So Jennifer, do you have a meaningful moment you'd like to share?
I do. So our boys, the oldest and middle, are 4 years apart, and then 3 years between the middle and the younger. So there was a time when they were kind of all at home and the oldest had his license. So like they would all go somewhere and return together. So that happened a ton when they were small. And it's one of those things I didn't know to think about that it would end. It just, I think there's a children's book about them, that Let Me Hold You Longer, I think is what it is. And I always think about that. Like I didn't know that would be the last time. Well, recently everybody was home for a wedding. Our oldest best friend was getting married. So my husband and I were sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden we hear the back door open and we hear voices, and the boys have all been at the wedding rehearsal because they were all in the wedding. And so they just come filing through the kitchen, laughing and talking. And we look up and we can see these grown boys walking in together. And I looked over at my husband and we both had tears in our eyes. And it was just this moment of like, I didn't even know that I missed that, but it was so precious for them to walk in laughing and talking and having arrived in the same car, just like they did when they were young. It was so, I can't stop thinking about it. Like, it was just such a neat moment and very fun to have that happen.
I love that. Oh, your boys are so great too.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. What about you, other Jennifer?
Yes. I'll be other. You can be the original.
As my fourth grade teacher called me, I was Jenny T, which I hated.
Aw.
There were so many of us.
Oh,
And in seventh grade, there were 7 Jennifers.
Yes.
We were all known by our last names. And my last name was Thacker, so you can go down the list of options. Thack Attack, Thacker Whacker, Thacky.
So
Okay.
I'm guessing this is not your meaningful night.
I still have a grudge. Ms. McDuffie and Mr.
If
Branson.
you're listening.
Okay, no, I'm okay. No, so my meaningful moment would have just been last night. So one of our girls was feeling disappointed because some plans with friends were canceled at the last minute, and that seems to kind of happen often with this particular friendship. And she was just feeling disappointed, and she had texted me about it midday while she was still away for classes. And I offered initially and just said, well, do you want to invite the other people over? And she said no, because she just doesn't want to step on toes. And I said, okay, well, why don't we hang out? Would you like to go to the beach, or we could go get pumpkin spice lattes, or, what do you want to do? And so she said, I really just want to stay home. I was like, oh, that's my girl. Which is funny because whenever the girls are gone, Carrie will ask, do you want to go out to dinner? Do you want to go? And I think he feels like because they're gone, like maybe it's this obligatory date invite. And I'm like, can we just bring it home? And he's like, yes. So she said, can we just hang out here and make cookies? So she found a crumble copycat recipe, and we made cookies last night together. We used a full-size ice cream scoop for one cookie dough scoop.
Wow.
They were like huge.
What flavor were they?
Vanilla. And then she's got some kind of frosting situation that she's doing today. But then you take like a giant mason jar and you like press it down to flatten it out. So they are truly it looks like a crumble cookie. So I can't wait till they're done, until she's decorated them, because they're going to be beautiful. But this morning when she was leaving, she said, thanks for hanging out with me last night.
Oh, I love it.
Oh,
so that was like a friendship thing between us too. Like, she's disappointed from this one friend situation, and for whatever reason, like, she doesn't really feel like there's options like in other friends and other relationships. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't want her to be lonely. I don't want her to be disappointed. There's plenty of things I could go do tonight, but like, we'll just do this.
Oh, so I love that.
Don't regret it. It was really sweet. All right, Gretchen, do you have a meaningful moment?
I do. It's interesting. All of ours are related to our children today. But one of the things that we try to do is do weekly FaceTime with our kids who are grown. And so one of ours at college, we did a weekly FaceTime with him on Sunday night. And it was just so good to see his smiling face and to see him happy and enjoying his first year of college away, and just all the things that we talked about. And he and I, because it was during his senior year and all the college applications, like we had a lot of late nights together as me, kind of his homeschool mom, counselor, college prep person, doing all the essays and all the, so we had so many discussions late at night and all of that, and I just had really missed that time with him, with him being gone. And so we just talked and talked for quite a while on FaceTime, and it was, number one, to see him happy and sharing all that he's doing and all the people he's meeting and all about classes and career fairs and all these different things, just was so encouraging to my heart. But then once we finished FaceTiming, it was a while later, I get a text from him that said, thank you for talking tonight.
Oh, love it.
And if you have teenage boys, like, and the ones that don't text
Yes.
you a lot, or like,
Yes.
it's like the thumbs up.
It's such a precious nugget when you get
Yes.
it.
That to not only get a text, but to get a thank you text for talking. It was just a very, very meaningful moment. So if you're listening, buddy, thank you for FaceTiming me and texting me.
That's really
It's
sweet.
very nice. So.
I feel like the opposite of that because y'all both have boys.
You get all the information.
With girls, sometimes I'm like, my ears. I
Yes.
just have to take like, I just need a break. But then I think, what if I don't know. I think what if this was something, what if this small conversation was going to lead to something a little bit more in depth? They're just kind of testing the water right now. Like, is she available? Can she handle this? And maybe I'll go into this other thing.
Right.
But sometimes I do feel the temptation to just be like, okay, see you later. Bye. Good chat. But I always feel convicted if I do that, which I try not to. Well, one of the things for our podcast, other Jennifer, guest Jennifer, one of the things that has been kind of a vision for us with the things that we share here is looking at when there's a gap between our ideals and then everyday life. And so how do we, first of all, how do we know if our ideals are honoring and pleasing to God? Sometimes our ideals are shaped by culture or things that we interface with online or books that we read. So sometimes we have to fine tune our ideals. But in the context of friendship, what would you say, just kind of off the top of your head, are some qualities of an ideal friendship?
That's a great question. I think for me, for my personality, one thing that I really value is availability. And I've had to learn that not everyone has the same sort of availability that I do. If you call me right now, I'll go to coffee. I don't care what else I had planned, or you know what I mean? Like it sounds fun to me. Let's do it.
Yeah. 7.
It is.
I were just talking about.
And we realized years ago that every morning when I wake up, I read this somewhere and I was like, yes, I do. That a 7, their first thought when they wake up is, what do I have that's fun today?
Really?
And I think that every morning when I wake up, I have to think, what do I have that's fun today? And so I said that to my husband, and he was like, I have never once ever had that thought.
I bet his is, what's on my to-do list?
What do I have to get done today?
Yes.
And so anyway, I've had to learn
so
that just because someone isn't immediately available does not mean like that they still are available for me. Not everyone is like me. But anyway, so just being available. And then I think just like walking through the normal everyday life. So that friendship is not something that's like a fireworks or but just that you're doing life together and that you're willing to kind of be in the messy with each other. I think too, at least for me, an ideal of how I think about friendship is that it's okay for friendship to have seasons and for, for things to change. And that, I mean, even as you mentioned, our friendship, like that, it's not as if our friendship failed. It's just that it's gone through seasons of when we're both busy with our own lives. But then the beauty of it, and I think what's ideal, is that you can come back together and there's still that history. So those would be some things for me that I think are ideals.
I love that you said doing the messy everyday life is part of the ideal.
Yes.
Like that's like that. I don't know that we ever kind of married those two things, because sometimes people would think like an ideal friendship is where there's always availability and there's always trust and we're all there. It's not confusing and we're not sarcastic and rude one day and then sweet the next. And, we text each other right back. Like some people would say, well, that's the ideal. And then the messy part or the distance or maybe the hurt feelings or the disappointment, like that's the everyday life, which defines the gap between that and the ideal. But what you're saying is that
maybe that's the beauty of it. Yeah,
that's really good.
This sort of reminds me of what we were talking about with marriage. Like
it's a similar thing.
Like that is kind of the bigger picture, the bigger point, because there's sanctification and refining that happens when you are moving through those things instead of just quitting and walking away.
Right, which you can do. But yeah.
So in thinking about that ideal, how do you think your ideals over time have they changed in different seasons, or
Mhm.
what has friendship looked like for you, I guess,
Oh, that's
through
a
the
good question.
seasons?
I think I made some of my deepest friendships in college. And so
Mhm.
those are people that I'm still in contact with and still, even though we all live in different spaces, like we are intentional about remaining in each other's lives. But I mean, the living together nature of college can
Mhm.
never really be replicated. And so
Right.
that's just kind of a special time. But then when we first got married, we were in that space of like most of the people in our circle were a little bit older than us and had
Mhm.
kids. We were newlyweds, we didn't have kids. We were still up for staying out a little later or whatever. So we really struggled to make friends in those first years. And I remember thinking, well, is this just what it's like to be a grown up? Like, is this
Right.
how it's going to be? And so I remember feeling really sad about that. And then we actually moved to a different community. We started having kids. And so it just started getting a little bit easier. So when I think about those friends I had in when our kids were small, we were really kind of in the trenches together. Like
Mhm.
we would meet together and walk every morning while our kids played and just like hope the kids survived and
Yes.
maybe not even care if they didn't. I don't know. Um, and so I don't really see those ladies much anymore, but when I do, we have a history
Yes.
together of really like that daily contact of just helping each other get through the kind of mundane, heavy
Mhm.
parts of the day. And then as my kids got older, it was like now my friends are the parents of the kids that my kids are with. So that kind of
Mhm.
changed a little bit too. And to where now, our friends are really the people that we're doing life with. So the ones we're rubbing shoulders with the most. And, now those people become the people that we vacation with or that we share like our biggest hurts or our greatest joys with,
Mhm.
that we have funny text groups, that we're
Yeah.
sharing the things with. But it isn't like that's not the same as when the moms that I was friends with when my kids were little. It feels very
Right.
different, but it's what is maybe necessary or what just comes naturally in the different seasons that you're
Mhm.
in.
Mhm. So, do you feel like in those different seasons, were you the one kind of taking initiative
Hmm.
to cultivate those friendships, or do you feel like they kind of naturally came, or how did those,
Yeah.
as you entered a different season and realize who are my people, where are my people,
Hmm.
like how did you navigate
I think,
that?
as we mentioned, I'm an Enneagram 7, so I'm often the person trying to get the party
Yeah.
together. So, because of that, I've realized over the years that because I naturally do that, many times the people I'm friends with settle into that as there's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm often the one instigating things.
Mm-hmm.
But I've found in my life that while I'm happy to do that, I love doing that, it's my thing. I also really appreciate when I have a friend who also does. So
Right.
even though it appears that I want to be the one making the plans, I really am grateful when someone else says, "Do you want to meet for coffee?" And I'm not always the one asking.
Right.
But having said that, I think in the seasons when we haven't felt like we've had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of close friendships, the way that we've kind of come out of that is saying, okay, well, then what can we do? Like, how can we force people to be our friends? So a few years ago, there were several. So my husband was a youth minister, and now he works as a chaplain in the federal prison. So the kids who were in our youth ministry now are a part of our church as like 30-year-olds, and they're having babies and they're fantastic. And so a few years ago, I thought when I was their age, I would have loved for someone to say, "Hey, we'll make provisions for your kids. We'll cook dinner. Come to our house once a week. We'll do a book study."
Oh,
So I just opened that invitation. So many of them and other people were like, "That is so nice of you." Like, which go ahead, give me all the accolades. That's fine. But if I'm being honest, it's because I think they're really fun and I wanted
right.
to, and I'm maybe not going to be the one they invite to go out to dinner when they get a babysitter. Maybe they would. But if I invite them in, then
Right.
it's like, who's going to turn down a free meal and someone watching your kids for 2 hours?
Yeah.
And so I've just found in my life, like, if you can create or help like meet a need or yes, you're doing something for them, but if you're honest, it's like, no, I enjoy I don't even believe that you would want to hang out with me. I'm old, you know.
Yeah.
So just kind of like creating those spaces for friendships or relationships to flourish. So I don't know if I answered your question,
Yes, you
but I
did.
think
That's so
I go
good.
back and forth on that. And in the times when I am feeling poor me, nobody ever makes
Mhm.
plans. I think that's the time when I need to say, well, make the plans then. Like you
Right.
invent the Bible study, you invent the coffee meetup, you plan the girls trip.
That reminds me a lot of what I hear Sally talking about with all of the
Mm-hmm.
different times, Sally Clarkson, all the different times their family moved. She had to,
Uh-huh.
but she wanted that community. She wanted fellowship
Mm-hmm.
and friendship for herself and her family, but she had to be the initiator of all of
Right.
that. And I am not naturally an initiator because in my
Mhm.
mind, I've always got stuff I need to do.
Yes.
So I'm always thinking, what I don't really, I'd rather work on my to do list
Uh-huh.
than, maybe extend an invitation when maybe they really don't want to hang out with me anyway.
Right.
Like that's always kind of in the back of my mind too, just because of bad experiences I had with friends. I'm air quoting with friends in my young years. So like this is a good reminder for me to hear you, like as someone, you say you're a natural initiator and I'm not. I have to have a lot of confidence in a relationship to be an initiator. And even then, for me, I need to tell myself that that's important. Like that should also be on my to-do list to have
Yes.
time for
Yeah.
relationships that
Mm-hmm.
matter to me. But I just made a note, like to have the courage to initiate. If you are in a friendship with somebody who is a natural initiator and you're really not, then just to remember the initiators.
Yes.
They need you to reach out.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, I was thinking about you coming here and kind of, my Enneagram 1 self was kind of mentally making and writing down plans
Uh-huh.
for all the things that we could
I
do.
love it.
And I remember I was like, should I share the itinerary with her? Because I've made one. But maybe since I didn't, I can just pretend that I'm being spontaneous.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
I
we're
think
gonna
that will
go
go.
do this. And we just happen to have
I
a
love it.
reservation.
I love it.
Listen, spontaneity is not one of my traits.
Oh, I
It
love it.
freaks me out.
Yes. Me too. It's just like, how can you do that?
Yes.
I love that though. But it makes me wonder if some of that was kind of a part of your endurance in friendship. Like
Mhm.
even with me, like I think about, not to like air all my baggage, but so Jennifer and I were really good friends when we were little,
Mhm.
and then we entered the middle school years,
Which are
and
just dark for
they are
everyone, I feel
so
like.
hard. And I feel like looking back, like I can honestly look at my life and self reflect. And I was just not very nice in middle school. And a lot of it, I think, was, or at least looking back, I don't feel like, I look back on that, I'm like, I don't feel like I was very nice. Like I was selfish and I was hurt by a lot
Mhm.
of just life issues and lots of just chaos and disruption and temptation and it was the 80s, man.
Yes. It was a wild time to be alive.
So there was just a lot, and I knew the Lord, but I really felt like it, in looking back, like I was not walking with him as like my dependence and as my identity.
Mhm.
And so I just can look back and think I was really a terrible friend to you in those transitional times. But you never, even when I feel like a terrible friend, you never made me feel like I was a terrible friend. And you always stayed my friend and you always encouraged me. I felt like it then, but I couldn't verbalize it. I felt like you saw through all of my hurt, all of my pain, all of the things that I was going through as a teenager. And like you saw through that and saw who I could be.
Mhm.
And you never stopped encouraging me in who I could be. And I just wonder, like, how did you do that? Like, I think of like my own kids who are now, have gone through that age that I was or are in that stage. And I just think, was that totally the Lord? Was that like your parents? Was that your personality? Like, what gave you kind of the steadfastness and the security? And maybe it was hurtful for you, and you didn't show me that. But
Mhm.
I just wonder, like, what enabled you to be like that faithful friend who saw the beauty in something so broken that you continued to invest?
Hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for saying all that. We're both crying, by the way. So I don't remember ever. So I will just say I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I wasn't oblivious to it, but I don't remember ever a time thinking like I don't want to be her friend. So it was never like a conscious choice of, wow, this is happening, but I guess I should still. So I don't. I just we were friends like that. What period? And so and I don't know for sure. Like, I never thought, oh, she is being hurtful to me. I felt hurt by some of the things that happened in middle school that involved you and other people as well. I felt hurt, but I never remember thinking, like, oh, she's choosing to hurt me.
Mm.
So but I don't know how I was able as a middle schooler to, I mean, the middle schoolers I know, I'm not sure I don't know where that came from necessarily. I mean, I am an only child, so my mom and dad and I were really close, and I definitely felt safe to like talk to them about things. Now, we could do a whole other podcast of some of the baggage that might come from being an only child, but one of the things that I am grateful for now as I look back is that it was like we were a team. And so I know that I talked through all of that with my parents and like how I remember my mom talking about, well, this is how you could react, and this is how you might, this is, have you thought about this? Or,
Wow.
and our families were close. So my
Mhm.
mom was aware of just like anything that, all of the other stuff,
Yeah.
that surrounded all of that. And I think growing up in a small town is rough because, or it can be, it's beautiful, but also has its difficulties because it's not like you could it's going to sound like I'm saying, what better choice did I have? That's not what I'm saying. But it's not like being at a bigger place where like there are multiple friend groups that you could go, well,
Right.
maybe I'll go try my hand at being with the theater kids or
Right.
it just like, this is where you are. And I think I kind of learned early on that not all relationships are always good, and what a great
Mm.
lesson to like learn in the safety of like with your parents and them helping you
Right.
talk through it. And a lot of the ways that we now talk through situations with our kids I learned from watching my parents and benefiting from that. And then in my adult life, again, you're friends with people who are broken and you are broken, and so that's going to clash. And so how do you remain in friendship? We were just talking about that earlier at coffee, like just being in relationship with people who are going maybe disappoint you or have other stuff going on that has nothing to do with you, but it still hurts you or that kind of thing. I think I learned back then. And that's now looking back, I see that as such a gift. It wasn't always fun. Like there were days of junior high that I remember like not wanting to go to school, so I don't want to paint it like a completely rosy picture,
Right.
but I am super grateful for the gifts that came out of that, I guess. So,
The word that I think of when I think of you is faithful.
mhm.
Like you've just always been faithful and faithful through those seasons. And then the times when there has been a gap, like maybe it was when we were college or young kids. Like I feel like
Right.
we didn't talk a
Yes.
lot when our kids are really
Oh, we
young.
were busy filling sippy cups.
I know. And all the diapers.
Yes, so many diapers.
All the things. But it's also such a gift that anytime we've reconnected, it's like there's no, I'm sorry we
Yes,
haven't.
it
And
just
that
is what it is.
we just pick right back up. And I think a lot of that is me knowing like your faithfulness through the years, that has been, there's like a security in that. And I don't know if that comes from just having never had a time in my life that I remember that you weren't a friend,
Right,
like
right.
it's just this constant faithfulness, or if that's personality, or like, or if it's all the above,
Yes.
But how do you feel like you are able to be a faithful friend through the years? Like what goes on behind the mental scene, so to speak, of like
What
how
craziness.
yeah, like how do you navigate your security, identity, feeling valued, all of that? With, you even said like letting friendships go, entering into new ones. Is there a way to describe
Yeah, that's a
that?
good question. I think a lot of that I have learned from my husband. Again, similarly to being an only child, we could also have a podcast on things that annoy me about him. So let me just say that I love you. But he has a lot of wisdom in relationships. And so I have learned from him, like, there's no need to communicate. If we're in relationship with someone that we feel is like, what I don't even know an example, but like what they're doing is like unjust or like not right or whatever. Like he's just very good at saying like we don't need to tell everyone. The people will figure it out. The people are always found out. And so just letting go of the need to, but did you know that they blah blah blah,
Right.
that for me is come sort of natural, like I need everyone to know how wrong this was.
Right.
And so I think learning that from him, that like if you just kind of take a breath and let, not that there isn't sometimes of course a time for like healthy confrontation or communication, of course, but as far as I want to put a billboard up in town about like let me tell you what and but he is just really good at saying just wait it out, like people will be found out. And so that has been a really helpful lesson for me to learn. I do have moments of feeling like, is there something about me that is causing this relationship to be distant? So I certainly have that, and it's not just that I am always fine with what's going on, but I always try to like I process by talking. My family probably gets tired of me talking. Like I want to figure it out. Like, is there anything like what has happened? Is it because when I said that they were like, oh, I don't want to hang with her anymore? Like I want to figure that out. So I always try to, and sometimes there's just no reason. It really is just people are busy or whatever. So that would be one, just like trying to kind of get to the bottom of why are we distant. But I also don't have any problem with jumping right back in. I think I have learned that some people do like have a fear of, if we've been distant, like how do we navigate getting back in? But for whatever reason, have always just had the, maybe it's courage, maybe it's stupidity, to assume that they want to hear from me. Like, so like just zipping a card in the mail or sending a text. And I know when I'm on the receiving end of that, how special it is to hear from someone you haven't heard from in a while. So I try to have that in mind. A text to, like, my niece was flying back to her college this week. So like a text of, here's a Starbucks card. Like just those, I just try to think of like what have in my life have I felt so loved by, and then turn that around to try to think of it. But that comes naturally for me because I love fun. I would love to get Starbucks card. So so just little things like that, like what makes me so excited and how can I do that for someone else, whether or not we've been in contact lately, kind of thing. So
that's so good. You're just such a good friend.
oh my goodness, thank you.
I feel like I just witnessed something very sweet. Like that was.
Thank you
like,
for being here for that. I know that was wonderful.
Really sweet. And I wish that, just from my own hurtful experiences with friends in my childhood, I wish that I've always kind of wondered, like, will they ever come back? And like, will that conversation ever happen for me with those people?
I mean, this may be too analytical of it, but I think part of that season for me was how far can I, and I don't think I was mentally like actually doing this, But looking back, it was how far can I push somebody
Mm-hmm.
to where they'll finally be done with me?
Mm-hmm.
Because
And I was like, oh, hold my beer.
you're
That's so I feel like that kind of ties back into what you were saying about the ideal in friendship.
Mhm.
The ideal isn't that it's easy and tight.
Yeah.
The ideal
Is
is
the
the
mess.
long suffering and the
Mhm.
forbearance and the faithfulness
Mm-hmm.
and the courage to initiate and the courage to forgive, to quietly forgive,
Mm-hmm.
to like privately forgive. Because
Mhm.
you weren't going to her saying, Gretchen, gosh, I'm forgiving you, just so you know.
right.
Well, that's what grace is. That's what we talked about in
It
the
doesn't announce
first
itself.
in the
Yes.
first episode of
Mhm.
friendship. Like grace is this really humbling thing because you don't realize that you're getting it in the moment.
Right.
Because by nature, grace
Not
doesn't
an
say,
announcement.
"Here I am,
Mm-hmm.
roll out the red carpet for me,
Right.
blow the trumpets," because you're
Mhm.
getting so much grace right now. That's why it's so humbling. Is because later when you realize that you've received grace, you're like, in the moment, I didn't know that I
I didn't
needed
even
it.
know.
Mhm.
And I didn't know I was getting it, and that person still gave it to me generously and freely and without me even knowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the wild thing about
Mhm.
grace.
Mm.
And you think about that in the context of human friendships, but then you think about the context
Right.
of our
Oh,
relationship
how much greater.
with Jesus.
Right. We don't even know.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
We can't possibly fathom. Something I heard recently about friendship is that our friend group changes like every 7 years.
Oh,
So I'm like,
interesting.
okay, well, what else changes every 7 years? I'm getting a new friend group. I'm getting new taste buds. Something's probably happening with my hormones.
My
Yes.
metabolism.
All of those things. So have either of y'all seen that kind of like this cycling of friendship? And of course, I have to just say too, like some of the things you were talking about, Jennifer, earlier, like proximity has a lot to do with our friend
Mhm.
groups, especially when our kids are little, because that was it for us. Who was I homeschooling with?
Uh-huh.
That's where Gretchen and
Mhm.
I became friends, started going to her mom group, and then, joined the co-op that her
Mhm.
family was participating in. And then from there, so a lot of it was like that proximity thing. And then when our children's needs change, their friend groups kind of change based on who they're with later in those activities and seasons. And then that kind of dictates who
Mhm.
my friends are. So sometimes it's just proximity, season of life. Sometimes it's ministry. Like a lot of
Right.
my friend group
Mhm.
right now, well, and for years has been determined by ministry. I'm on our worship team at church. And so those are some of like my dearest friends.
Mhm.
But do you feel like like either of y'all have y'all noticed kind of a cycling of friend groups in a way that's, and I hate using the word organic when I'm not talking about food, but I guess it just is annoying. But
Mhm.
for me, I guess that's how I would categorize it, like this natural shifting of your friend groups based on the shifting of how your family is moving in and out of life and
Mhm.
activities and locations and all of that. And is that something that, have you ever thought like maybe that means something's wrong with me because I'm not still close with these people? Or do you just kind of
Mm.
accept it as this is just life?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Have either of y'all noticed that?
Partly yes and partly no. I would say the way I have noticed it is when my friendships are based on around kids things, maybe work or ministry. Like there are things that it's like that's in that season of life. So I have kind of those friends that have naturally changed as like my kids have done different sports and activities and different age groups. And if I've connected with moms who the kids, like you said, get together and play at the park together. And so I feel like there has been a seasonal shift in friendships that way. But then there are friendships that I have that are kind of independent of my
Mhm.
children and husband, that are just like my
Mhm.
friends that are really just kind of my friends. And there has been a consistency with a lot of those friends. And again, there'll be times when maybe we don't spend as much time together. And then there are times when we spend a lot of time together. And so there's kind of a range, a fluctuation of communication and time. But I do feel friendships that are just in the circumstances of life, I have felt a change in
Mhm.
those. Years ago, I was in a neighborhood Bible study, and it was a Beth Moore study. One of the first times that someone dove into with me in that Bible study we talked about a lot was there are seasons of friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to part ways with a friend, not like based on I'm angry with them or
Right.
there's been a riff or something, but God has something else for them. God has something else for you. And like you go different directions and you're doing
Mm-hmm.
different things. And there was such a freedom
Yes.
in that of, oh, it is not all about me. Like there is such a bigger picture in friendship that maybe for this season, this friend and I were together and did whatever together, but then you can see that, okay, it's okay. I'm not a failure if those friendships go a different direction, which also reminds me of that was about the same time when I was learning that I think maybe it's Christian women that it's more prevalent with, but it's like as a Christian, like you should be able to be friends with everybody. Like as a Christian woman, like why could you not be friends with somebody or. And so, if there were different personalities or different situations and I just really felt like I can't be a good friend to this, like I'm not the friend that they need. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a sense that you can feel like, oh, I'm failing.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not, I should be able to be friends with everybody. And that was around that same time in that study that I realized, oh, it doesn't mean that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a good believer or a good person or a good friend. Like, I don't have to be the friend to everybody. God will provide a friend for that person if,
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the purpose of, if I'm remembering, because that study was, that was one of my big takeaways from that same study too, was about the
Really?
friendships. Yeah, like that
Yes.
permission. But the whole reason that that friendship had to end was because Paul knew that if Barnabas, I think he wanted to bring his cousin along,
Mm-hmm.
and Paul was like, sorry, like he knew that that would hinder the ministry and the mobility that God required for him to be moving as he was continuing to travel and minister to churches. And so Paul knew, like, my ministry will be hindered if we agree to that. And so we have to part ways. And I think some of, like, having the confidence to say this relationship is not, because you're right, we can kind of have a sense of shame if we're not able to
Mm-hmm.
be all things to all people, which is
Right.
another scripture. But then what does that mean? Like, you also have to know, what is God calling you to do? You have to have confidence in what your ministry assignment is in that season, if it's to stay close to home and to your family, or if it's to be able to be mobilized and do something regionally or internet, like or internationally. Like for Paul, you just have to know what your calling is,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, then you can't make those decisions apart from shame and like second guessing and having regret. Potentially regret hinders growth because you're looking back and it's slowing you down instead of having momentum to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was one of the biggest takeaways from that
That's
study for me
interesting.
too.
That's good.
That was good. Same question for you.
So I was thinking about the first probably 13 years of our marriage. Both of us for the first couple of years, and then my husband for the rest of those, we were in full time working at a church as our jobs. And so, just by nature of that, our circle was the church. So our friends were in the church. What we did in our free time was with people in church. And then right at the same time, my husband took a job at the federal prison as a chaplain, and I started working as a teacher, and I hadn't been working before. So all of a sudden, we're like in these circles that are certainly for him and even for me too, outside of the church. And so making like different friendships. And that was such a gift that we didn't even know to be excited about. So it's just a lot of fun to like branch out to different people and just make different relationships, something that we either mostly didn't have time before, but certainly didn't make time for before. So that was really fun. But then when I think about those relationships that we had with people in the church before, it's not as if we stopped being friends with them, but the time, again, you're not in proximity with them. Those aren't the people you're with every day and all the time, but we still value those friendships. And so I just went to coffee a few weeks ago with one of those ladies who I haven't talked to for probably months, but then we met and she initiated, so that was super fun. It's fun to maintain those relationships, that history, even when you life has taken you in a different direction. I don't know how long it's been now, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I read something or heard on a podcast that when you are talking to someone that you don't see a lot and you say the thing that we often say, oh, we should get together, that as soon as you say that to someone, that when you say goodbye, you should immediately look at your calendar and contact them to set a date. And I started doing that, and it was so fun. In fact, I had to kind of slow down because my husband was like, we can't go out to dinner with friends anymore. Like, this is too much. But just, those people that you flip it
Yes.
somewhat, I mean, you don't really mean to be flippant, but you just say, oh, we should get together. But if you immediately like find 3 dates that work for you and text it to them, such beautiful things happen. And it's so fun. For me anyway. I don't know if everyone thinks that's fun, but so that's been a fun thing in the last few years of just like, I was flying for work and sitting, eating, drinking a coffee in the Minneapolis airport. And I looked up and had the thought, that looks like Bill Warren, who was a guy we worked with in Chicago 25 years ago. And I stared a little bit more and I was like, that is Bill Warren.
Oh,
And we've caught up with him several times over the years and we maintain a friendship, but I did not expect him to see him in the airport. And we were both like, oh, hello. And his wife was there too. They were coming home from a vacation. And so we immediately were like, let's set a date for dinner. And like 2 weeks later, we went to dinner. But I think my old self would have been, before I kind of learned that strategy, I would have been like, oh, I wish we could get together.
yeah.
And then we wouldn't have. But I love that it was like built into me, like, we're free these nights. And then we met for dinner. So that's been a fun thing. And something that too, like we couldn't have done that. One, we didn't make enough money to go out to dinner that much in our early years, but also, when the kids are little and that kind of thing, but we're at a season of life where that's a thing we can do more easily. Yeah. So that's been really fun.
That is so good. I love it.
I just think about how meaningful it is to me when someone reaches out to me, even if it's been a long time, even if it feels out of the blue, even if it seems random. I feel so loved and seen when someone says, how's it going? Tell me what the boys are doing. And so just again, turning that around to like, how easy is it even to just zip a text?
Right.
Shouldn't maybe always just depend on that, but that's that's the entry point. Like, how are you? So easy, but can feel so meaningful.
Also, when you were saying about how y'all opened your home, like you were opening your home, like who's going to turn down free childcare and dinner?
Right.
And I just thinking about that, but the part of what you said after that was, I don't know why they want to hang out with me. I'm old, so I'll just bait them with food. But I've had a similar experience with some of the younger women in our worship team at our church, and I think they're young and cute and fun. And why would they want to hang out with me? But the times that I've taken to spend time with them or to, come help her hang pictures at her new house or to, just take her some soup that's homemade. Those are things where I'm like, if someone had done that for me, just because they were in a different season of life and older, I would have felt so gifted. Like, why would they want to hang out with me?
Yes.
I'm so young. I don't have anything to offer.
Yes.
And I think we kind of shortchange what the Lord has given us to offer. And the relationships that people have cultivated with me, people who are in different seasons of life, particularly beyond me.
Yes.
I think I have been tempted to ask, like, why would they? I don't have anything to offer. I can't pour into their lives. I don't have wisdom for where they are. I don't I have nothing to offer. I'm literally going to be just take because they have so much to offer me. And so we forget. And then if you would have asked that friend, they would have said, no, you're fun. I like hanging out with you like friends.
Yes.
And Gretchen, even like in the beginning of our friendship years ago, I kind of felt like that. Like, I don't have anything to offer her. Why would she want to hang out with me?
But that is exactly, I was sharing the history of our friendship with the other Jennifer last night. And I remember sitting in your car, like it was after a music night at church. Like we went to somewhere together, like a concert at church or something. And you asked if I would mentor you.
Yes.
And I remember I was like,
Oh, isn't that so humbling? You're like, no, I don't have anything to say.
And I was like, I was like, oh no, that means I have to be like intentional and say things that like are actually important. I don't know. Why would she want me to mentor her? Like, I don't have anything to offer. Stop. And that was like the fear that I felt like, oh no, they were just hanging out as friends. And now I gotta be like,
I did a DTR. We had to define that relationship.
now I have to have good things to say. I gotta be prepared.
Well, you know what's funny is like I remember that conversation, but also I felt like you were already doing that.
Mhm.
It wasn't like you had to go change clothes and like play a different part.
Yeah.
I felt like we already had that, but there was a part of me that just wanted to communicate to you like
Mhm.
what I
I see
value
you as this.
Mhm.
Yes, like the leadership and the ministry that you have in my life and the value that your experience has to offer. Not that it has to be this, what's the ideal? It's not that you have perfect knowledge and wisdom and
Mhm.
forethought and like you can predict what I'm going to need to know.
Mhm.
It's that you're there and that
Yes.
you're living your own life in obedience to the Lord in a way that is visible, and you're offering that to me to learn
Mhm.
from. And I still feel that like when you've got your weekly FaceTime calls with the kid with your grown kids and just the different things, like just by giving me proximity to your life,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that is the mentoring,
Mhm.
Right.
like just by virtue of proximity.
Interesting that no matter what season we're in,
You
Yeah.
whether
assume.
we're the one receiving
Yes.
or
Yeah.
think you're the one giving in a relationship, like we all feel inadequate.
Right.
We all feel like,
Mhm.
why would I
Mhm.
have anything,
Yes.
but everyone does. We all
Mhm.
have something
Mm-hmm.
to offer others, and maybe it's the enemy who wants us to think
Absolutely.
that we don't. In a
No.
way to kind of wrap up our conversation, we like to share with the listeners like kind of some action steps or call to action for them to take some steps
Mhm.
into whatever topic we're discussing. So, as far as friendship and being a friend, what are some things like in thinking about your life and things that have worked for you or things
Mhm.
like that, things that have helped you in being a good
Yeah.
friend? Would you share some of those, please?
I would say, first off, if you find yourself in a season where you don't feel like you have a good group of friends, or you just maybe you wish you had more friendships or deeper friendships, to be willing to be the person to try to invite someone in. So we always used to tell our boys, like, find someone who's alone and love them today. And they mock me now for it, but
Oh.
they're better people for it. But
That's great.
but do that as an adult woman, like find the people who also maybe feel like
Mhm.
they don't have a group or whatever, and you be the one to have them over. And I guess I would also say, don't feel like you can't do that until like your house is in order, or
Mhm.
you're making the perfect Pinterest recipe. Like, most people want to be in a home that's not in order because it makes them feel better about what they've got going on at their house. At least
Amen.
that's, I can speak for myself anyway. So just make a pot of chili and invite a couple families over for no reason at all except to be together, and magical things happen. So I guess that would be the first one, especially if you find yourself in a season where you feel like nobody's inviting you, then just start inviting. But along with that, when you do run across friends who maybe you haven't seen for a while, or you used to be close to and maybe you're not now, when you do say the words, we should get together, to immediately find a couple of dates, send them to them in a text. And it won't always happen, but it will happen more often than not that you'll get together soon. And that's just such a gift.
Mhm.
But two, just to be willing to be your authentic self, which I think invites other people to do the same. You have the courage to really be honest about who you are and where you've come from and things that you don't love about yourself. I think it just gives people permission to feel safe to do that with you as well. So that's always been and I value the friends in my life who are kind of like, this is who I am. I wish I wasn't, and I'm working on it, but here's where we are.
Mhm.
And that makes me feel safe with them. So
Mhm. It is so good. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
It's been such a gift, and really thank you for being the best, longest friend.
The oldest.
The oldest.
You can say it.
It really is.
48 years
That's crazy.
of goodness.
That is crazy.
I
We're not that old.
know. We're
So yeah, just thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
just your example of Christ, your example of friendship, of motherhood, of being a wife. Like you so authentically share who you are and all that you go through. And it is just such a blessing to be on the receiving end. So
Thank you.
now I know to initiate.
That's right. Invite me to
can
comment.
be, yes, I can be spontaneous. Oh, it's just been such a gift. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, and we need to let people know where they can find you.
There we go. So I'm on Instagram, Mrs. Wood 523.
Okay.
MRSWOOD 523.
Awesome. So we will link to that, and so you all can connect and invite Jennifer to call over.
Please. Anywhere. I'll go today.
I love it. Well, thank you, friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.